Hello, it's Danielle again. Welcome to the Pangolin Chobe Hotel in Kasane. I'm working on some Lightroom edits here, and I'm sitting in one of our rooms. You can see there's ample space for your computer, your camera, your charging, everything happening here in the room, so a great space for photographers to do their thing. Today we'll be talking about the histogram, what it is, and how you interpret it. And before I continue, please remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon at the bottom to get notifications about our next video. So as you can see on my screen here, I have the image that I took yesterday on the river, and then the histogram on the right-hand side in the develop panel. A histogram is basically a graphical display of tonal values of an image. So it shows you how many pixels are at which area of the image. Meaning, on the left-hand side of the histogram, you see it says blacks over there at the bottom. Then it says shadows, exposure in the middle, highlights, and whites. So all this is it represents all the lights and darks that are in the image. So a darker image would have a graph sitting more on the left-hand side, and a lighter image would have a graph sitting more on the right-hand side. The midtones are represented in the middle. What you can see here is an Rgb histogram, which means that it represents your primary colors, your red, your green, and your blue. And wherever those colors overlap, you have your yellow, your cyan, and your magenta. Wherever the graph is gray on the right-hand side, it means all colors are represented. So where two of the three primary colors overlap, you'll have magenta, cyan, or yellow, and then the rest are your primary colors of red, green, and blue. So it looks complicated in the beginning, but it just shows you how many pixels there are in the lighter areas and how many pixels are represented in the darker areas. So on this histogram, as you can see with the fish eagle on the side of the river, on the river bank, the fish eagle has a few dark spots in his feathers, so some of his body is dark, and then his head and his neck is light and white. So those lights represented in the fish eagle's head would be on the right-hand side of the graph, and the darker areas would be on the left near the shadows. So that'll be those, it's a very small amount of number of pixels that are represented on the dark side because most of the image is very light. Now, yesterday, when I took the shot, I saw that the fish eagle's head was giving me blinkies, and you can refer to the blinkies video about what blinkies are. But basically it showed that the neck and the head of the fish eagle was flashing black and white on my screen. And that you don't really want, because that means that you're losing detail, as I say on my video. So you can see that the blinkies are basically a representation of the histogram. It's a shortcut. If you see it on the back of your LCD screen on your camera blinking, you know that on the histogram you're going to have a lot of tones on the right-hand side of your histogram, and what we call clipping happens. So as you can see on this histogram, there's a blue arrow lighting up on the right. So that alerts you that your highlights are clipping, which means your highlights are touching the right-hand side of the histogram. This is not something you want. You want the graph to be away from the sides mostly, because as soon as it touches either left side or right side, and it gives you that little triangle alert that lights up, it means that you're losing detail either on the right-hand side in the highlights, or on the left-hand side, you're losing detail in the black areas. You do want to try and not do that when you shoot. It is slightly recoverable to a certain degree, but the way right, on the way right, if it clips, it means you've lost detail in the highest highlights, or the brightest highlights, if I can say it that way. So you can take the histogram and try and drag it down slightly to the left, and you'll see that the arrow disappears. if I drag it to the right, it lights up again. If I drag it to the left, it goes dark. So you can do that to a certain extent. If your lights are blown out, your highlights are blown out too much, then you'll see it never pulls away from the right-hand side. So what you should have done in camera, as I explained yesterday on my video, and you can go and check it out, is you should underexpose then slightly. So as soon as you see blinkies on the camera screen, on the LCD screen, you know that it's overexposing, meaning you know it's clipping on your histogram, and you know that those highlights won't contain any details. And you do want details in his feathers, for example, on his neck. So what you do in camera is you would underexpose, making your picture slightly darker. So what I can do to show you is this was the other image that I took, and I underexposed slightly yesterday. So if you look at the histogram, you'll see that nothing touches on the left. So the detail in the dark spots are retained, and the details in the highlights are also retained. And that is a much better image because you cannot recover blown out highlights. You can still recover shadows to a certain extent, depending on how much noise pops up in your image, but you can check that out on another tutorial. That's the histogram explained. If you want to move around any area, you can either do it in Lightroom in the basic panel, so you can move your exposure around, or as you see there, it shows you those are the shadows. You click, you drag, and you lighten up the shadows. So you can either use your sliders in your panels, or you can use your histogram and actually grab and drag your histogram along and see what effect that has on the highlights and the shadows of your image. Just remember, don't clip on the right, don't clip on the left, and then you should be okay with retaining details in all the shadows and the highlights. So I hope that explains it. Check out other videos that explain other concepts in Lightroom. And thanks for watching. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below, and we'll answer any questions that you have. Until next time, bye-bye.